Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Bevi alla coppa della follia per non essere più svergognato. Bevi alla coppa della follia per non essere più svergognato. Chiudi gli occhi di carne per vedere l'occhio segreto. Chiudi gli occhi di carne per vedere l'occhio segreto. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Apri generoso le braccia, se desideri abbracci. Apri generoso le braccia, se desideri abbracci. Frantuma i feticci di terra se vuoi vedere idoli belli. Frantuma i feticci di terra se vuoi vedere idoli belli. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. L'amato s'aggira di notte, non dormire tu la notte. L'amato s'aggira di notte, non dormire tu la notte. Chiudi al cibo la bocca per gustare in bocca dolcezza. Chiudi al cibo la bocca per gustare in bocca dolcezza. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Promettente ecco il coppiere, vi è un circolo nella sua festa. Promettente ecco il coppiere, vi è un circolo nella sua festa. Entra nel circolo e siedi fino a quando guardare i cerchi del tempo. Entra nel circolo e siedi fino a quando guardare i cerchi del tempo. fatti simile ai santi, per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna, per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Ecco un sicuro guadagno da una vita e prendine 100. Ecco un sicuro guadagno da una vita e prendine 100. Smetti di fare il lupo e il cane, prova la grazia del pastore. Smetti di fare il lupo e il cane, prova la grazia del pastore. Fatti simile ai santi, per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna, per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Non pensare a nulla, ma solo a chi ha creato il pensiero. Non pensare a nulla, ma solo a chi ha creato il pensiero. Meglio è pensare alla vita che preoccuparsi per il cibo. Meglio è pensare alla vita che preoccuparsi per il cibo. Fatti simile ai santi, per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna, per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Taci e più non parlare, che tu possa sentire il supremo discorso. Taci e più non parlare, che tu possa sentire il supremo discorso. Lascia la vita e il mondo e contempla la vita del mondo. Lascia la vita e il mondo e contempla la vita del mondo. Fatti simile ai santi, per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna, per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Fatti simile ai santi, per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna, per vedere gli ebri del santo vino.
So this song by Maulana Rumi, we are going to ponder over this evening for the Satsang. So he says, be like the saints, become similar, at least similar to the saints, so as to enjoy the pleasures of the soul. Come into the lane of the tavern, so as to see the intoxicated ones by the holy wine. So it's an invitation to explore a new dimension of life, different dimension of life, which is different than what most of the people know. Be like the saints, become like the saints, so as to enjoy the pleasures of the soul. Most of the people just know what is the pleasures of the body, of the senses. They don't know anything about what are the pleasures of the soul. So what they know is pleasure of food, pleasure of sex, pleasure of belongings, fame, name, power. Which don't make anybody happy. Because every pleasure is followed by pain, always. So, everything we take from this world, we have to pay for it. Nothing is given for free. And every opposite, as Rumi says in another song, manifests its opposite. So extreme pleasure is followed by extreme pain, always. So Maulana Rumi here says, there is another level of life, another possibility. Which doesn't come from the body, from the senses, but comes from the soul, from the spirit, from the light of God. That's the supreme happiness. When we come in touch with the divine light of God, that was what gives us supreme happiness. And it doesn't have consequences. It has a price, yes, but no consequences. It is not an action that brings a reaction. It has a price. And the price is living a certain lifestyle. It's a gem. It's a diamond. It's of supreme value. So we have to really show dedication and love for it. We have to really show that we want it above everything else. Because as Sanji used to say, shells, you get them everywhere. But diamonds, pearls, you don't get them everywhere. You have to work hard for it. So coming in touch, tuning in with the light of God is the supreme possibility. And for this supreme possibility of us human beings, we have to pay a price. We have to live a lifestyle which allows this to happen. And that's a life of discipline, a life of definite choices. A life in which we choose this above everything else. Because if we don't choose it above everything else, then we don't get it. Or we get it partially, according to how much dedication we give. Any amount of divine perception, it's a blessing. Any amount of coming close to this divine presence, it's a blessing. So it's worthwhile in any case. But a real seeker of truth wants everything. He doesn't want just a small part of it. Master Kripal used to say you have to develop a ruling passion for God. Then you get to it. Then it's given to you. If you don't have this ruling passion, and your passion is for something else, then you don't get it. Or you get it according to the passion you have for it. So masters always try to inspire us to get it 100%. That's the task, that's the role of a master. Trying to inspire people who relate to him to get as close as possible to full divine realization. So there's the blessing, the value, the help that we get by spending time with a master who has dedicated his whole life to this purpose, who has really tried 100%. There is nothing more as a happy factor than this. In any field of life, if you want to succeed, if you really want to learn the job, a skill, you have to spend time with somebody who's an expert in that field. It makes it so much easier. If we try ourselves, yes, we might learn something, but we may make lots of mistakes, make it difficult for us, do a bad job, and maybe sometimes getting into troubles and dangers. So it's so much easier to be humble and accept the help of an experienced person in any field we choose in life. Ordinary people don't understand this importance, how helpful it is to be related to a master on the spiritual path. Maulana Rumi again says, don't venture on this path without a guide, because then it might be full of dangers. And Sanji used to say, what we do when we are in the company of the Master, we do spiritual practice, we meditate, in order to uplift our consciousness. And when we uplift our consciousness, what happens? We feel good, we feel blessed. Finally, we feel to be in the right place, in the right condition, that which is fulfilling. And it says, generously open your arms if you want to be hugged. Smash all these fetish if you want to see beautiful idols. And what are these fetish? That which I talked before about. The pleasures that human beings mostly know. So if you want to be hugged by God, open your arms, welcome Him. Master Kirpal often used to say, if you take a step towards God, then He will take 100 to come to meet you. But if you don't take the first step, then He won't take even one also to come to meet you. So we have to want it. So longing, a passion for it, it's very important. So it must start from us. And anyway, it's a way of saying, because if at some point this need is created within us of wanting something more from life, not just the ordinary things, that's also grace from God. Master Kirpal used to say, the day in which you will feel this need, that's the most blessed day of your life. Up to then you live for nothing. So it's we who look for Him, it's His grace that allows us to begin looking for Him. It's always His grace. It's always a blessing. Otherwise we just continue living just a banal life with actions and reactions, joys and sufferings, with no purpose. Because if you don't get to understand what's the purpose of life, what's the meaning of all the sufferings of life. And mind you, in life there are joys, but there are many more sufferings. So all of these acquires meaning and purpose if you come to understand what is the purpose of life. Why do we come here? We come here to realize God, and we come here to share God with others. God is love, and the way of sharing it with others is giving our love. Becoming selfless. Not just thinking always, what am I going to gain from this? A seeker of truth should not think in these terms. Just giving oneself in no interest. That's expansion. Again, Master Kirpal would say, when you give, you expand yourself. When you take, you contract. the beloved goes around in the night, he says, then you do not sleep in the night, close to food your mouth. If you want to enjoy a sweet flavor in your mouth, Baba Savan Singh also used to say, I go around every night with buckets full of grace to give it out to those who are begging for it by meditating. But I find everybody sleeping, so to whom do I give this grace? So Guru Arjan says, what does the seeker of truth do? What kind of lifestyle will he have? She have. He will get up every morning at dawn, get ready, sing the praises of God, and then peacefully sit in meditation. So at least we should do this much. Otherwise, what is our spirituality? What is our spiritual life? If we love God, we have to show love. We have to give attention to God. So the way of giving attention is focusing our attention on the seed of the soul and try to go within to have this perception, because that beautifies life, beautifies our day, and we have a different day when we are tuned in with this divine perception. Then this will inspire our day, will inspire our thoughts, will guide our actions during the day, and we will have a different life than common people who do not have this kind of perception. Having an inspired life is different than having an uninspired life, with no inspiration, with no intuition, no perception. That's what makes life of a superior kind. And this doesn't make difference between rich, poor, learned, unlearned. If you don't have this perception, you can be the most bright scientist, but yet you are stuck in your thoughts. A life of a superior kind is the life in which you raise at least a bit above your thoughts. You experience during the day at least a tiny bit of silence in the mind. People love it. Those who have this kind of aspiration. What are you dreaming of? What are you looking for? They're just illusions, they say. Because for people who are in illusion, what's real is illusion. So seeker of truth gets up every morning, gets ready, and then sits down in meditation. Sings the praises of God, quietens the mind, focus the attention, and try to open a bit at least a bit, the inner eye, so as to see the light of God. This will make our life blessed, different, a superior kind. And then he says, close your mouth to food if you want to experience sweetness in your mouth. You rarely find a person on this earth who has fasted for at least one day. If you ask people, did you ever fast in your life one day? Oh, sometimes they didn't have breakfast. That's their fasting. Fasting is a blessing, really. Having this will, this capacity to raise above this need, which is a tormenting need for most of the people. This addiction. It's really an addiction. We talk so bad about drugs addiction, but food is a drug addiction for most of the people. If you listen to people talking, they mostly talk about sex or food. And Master Kripal used to say, if you can't control these two organs, then I assure you, you will see God. But that's what most of the people understand to be real, tangible. This restaurant, that dish, this and that. That's what they talk about. But I tell you, fasting, I am an expert. My life has been, concentrated on this topic. So you will rarely find somebody who is an expert as I am on fasting. And it has given me really a lot as far as self-control is concerned, as far as this sweetness that comes when you fast, about which Rumi talks here in this song. I began fasting when I was young. I just felt I need to experience myself in different conditions. Otherwise it's always the same thing. We may philosophize as much as we want, but if we don't change at least this basic thing of life, which is the way we eat or the way we don't eat, then there is no real change. When I became interested in spirituality, I right away became vegetarian. Even before I met Master Kripal, I didn't become vegetarian when I met Master Kripal in order to be initiated. I was already vegetarian for 1 year. And I had many friends who were, they became interested. We were quite a bunch of guys who became interested in seeking for truth. So the first attempt we had, it was with politics, with ideology. And we really got into it. There were some who were really good theologians on the topic. And I really got into it. I had some good teachers, really. And then, then I began being interested in yoga, meditation, and Indian philosophy. Then by the grace of God, I had that wonderful experience in 1972, and then I changed completely. And all these my friends who were ideologically oriented, they became very puzzled. Either he's gone crazy, or because I began saying, I really seen God face to face. And so they began considering the topic. And by and by they began reading about yoga, Buddhism. So in, let's say, a few months' time, all these my friends, they became the philosophers. But they didn't change anything in their life. So to me it became very obvious that talking and thinking and studying is not enough. You have to change your life. And which is the most something with which we are confronted daily in our life. It's food. What is the most dominating factor in our life? So if you want to change it, if you want to show that a change has happened to you, you have to begin with this fact. Change the way you eat. Because we are made by what we eat. Anything we eat, once it comes inside of us, it becomes us. So all these boys, and mostly boys, but some girls also, by and by they became vegetarian. And when I came back from India in 1973, almost all of them took initiation. And the Satsang of Master Kripal, which was in Milan at the time, it doubled when I became initiated. Because there were so many people to the Satsang. So then I began experiencing with fasting. So I tried one day, see how it goes. I was right away very fond of St. Francis of Assisi as an Italian mystic, and his life was really exemplary for me. And he was somebody who was experienced in fasting. So I began doing it. So one day, then 2 days, then 3 days, very difficult. 3 days for a young boy like that, 19 years old, 20, very difficult. I went on like this for years. 1, 2, 3 days from time to time. Then I thought, I have to go for a week. I have to try a week. And I was living here already. So I tried for a week, and that was wonderful. Then I really experienced something, because the first 3 days, it's a kind of a torment. The body is still so used to the food, you don't get detached from it. So this need, this addiction, really, is very strong. But if you go for a week, then after the 3rd day, it changes. The need is less. The hunger is less. And you really begin experiencing some sweetness in your mouth, as Rumi says, in yourself, in your body. These kind of states of kind of bliss, sometimes ecstasy, and sometimes an incredible nervosity. Sometimes desperation. But I really wanted to try myself. I really wanted to experience myself. Then at some point I said, okay, 10 days now. So I went for 10 days. Sometimes. It was even better. Because how it goes physiologically. In the beginning, the body consumes the glucose, what you have stored in the liver. After the 2nd, 3rd day, it begins sucking, consuming the fat. So this can go on for quite some time. Of course, it's important to drink. I'm talking refusing solid food. But drinking water, teas, some honey with teas, that's okay. And when one feels very hungry, drink even a little water. Fill up your belly. So I went on like this, 10 days. That was great. Really. I began experiencing really something special. Then some, what was it? 15 years ago, I had in mind always I would like to go for a month. So at some point, it was after Christmas. You know, Christmas is always the time you should eat more than usual. Sweets and stuff. So I came at the end of these festivities in which I was really fed up with this food. So I thought, okay, this is the time. I was going to have a retreat on the 6th of February, somewhere in North Italy. At the time, there was a lady organizing, Preganziol. So I thought, okay, I begin on the 6th of January, and I will go up to the 6th of February. So I began, and after the 10th day, it was really wonderful. I really came into a state of complete peace, complete detachment from everything, really being above the world. And this went on like this, 20 days, 30 days. And I was amazed really how I didn't feel the need for food really. I had the same kind of energy, the same strength, and I didn't feel weak at all. And at the end, by the way, I had this retreat, so I had to be very present, very attentive, and capable of organizing my thoughts. And it was much better than anytime. So it was the first time I really had very deep experience with fasting. Then it went on like this. I began fasting 2 days every week, Monday and Tuesday. That was very good. He really kept the balance. Then for a period I stopped, these 2 days. I just went on fruits. And some 2 months ago I thought, that's enough. So I began fasting, and I'm still fasting. It's 64 days now. And it's different every time, really. Like everything in life, nothing repeats the same way. So this time also has been different than any other time. And it's really such a liberation. When you don't need to rely on anything coming from outside. Now, I don't mean that everybody can do this. I'm not advising this to anybody or to everybody. But it's good to try to experience oneself in different conditions. It's good to experience oneself in situations in which most of the people do not. To see how you react. What is your strength? What is your self-control? What I'm sure about is that most of us eat so much more than what we need. So it's good to reduce this addiction, really. And from time to time, take a distance from it. According to our physiology, for some people 1 day is a lot. For some people 1 month is nothing. So everybody has to, if anybody is interested in experiencing this side of life, let's say this possibility of life, then one must try with oneself. Because we are all different, and we all have different needs, different reactions to situations. I think myself I could go on for the rest of my life like this. It might seem crazy, but I think so. Just drinking something. So anyway, this is another pleasure. Fasting is another pleasure of life. I mean, a spiritual pleasure. It's a spiritual practice, really. Because what's spirituality eventually? I mean, what's a spiritually oriented life? It's a life in which we try to get detached from things, free from things. What is freedom? Not to be addicted to anything. So it's good to take distance from anything of which that makes us slaves somehow. Compulsory needs that we don't need. So that's freedom from it. I mean, that's another freedom. Then the supreme freedom is getting rid of the mind. But controlling the body also is very important. I know there are many people, doctors and spiritual teachers also, who are against fasting. Also in Sant Mat is not very famous, very appreciated, this idea. But as I say, I have my own Sant Mat. I don't go with anybody, I just go with my own experience. So, we continue tomorrow with this song, this commentary. For this evening, I think this is enough. This is a song by Rumi that contains wonderful teachings. They become wonderful if we experience them, if we live them, if we live by them. Otherwise, of course, they're just words written there, which do not mean anything. Anything acquires a meaning when it becomes our experience. Otherwise, it's just a dead something. People like theories. They feed themselves on theories and philosophies, ideologies. But practical man, that's what we should be, not theoretical man. Anyway, the food they cook is prasad. So enjoy it. After the retreat, you may pass, you go.